With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our first panel for the day, which is on access programs with students and alumni. And there's a brilliant group of students that will be joining us. Our panel moderator, Shane Wallace, who's the registrar with the Transitional Year Program, will be facilitating and moderating that discussion and introducing the panelists. So over to you, Shane.
Thanks for the pass along, Kimberly, and thanks for your comments Monday. I found them very insightful. So my name is Shane Wallace. I'm here as the current faculty registrar of the Transitional Year Program, which is one of the first access programs here at U of T, and also one of the first access programs in all of Canada. So I'm really proud to be repping TYP today, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's student and alumni panel in particular. So welcome to you all, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the format of today's student panel. So this session will be recorded. We're going to give our panelists a total of about 40 minutes to discuss the first question I've already asked them, and some additional time to answer some of my follow-up questions as well. So it'll be a full sequence of about 5 or 6 questions from me. This will be followed by a 10 to 15-minute Q&A where you, members of the audience, can submit questions through our chat function on the right, whichever side that is, that I'll then be able to ask on your behalf to our panelists. This will be followed up by a 30-minute fireside chat where we can have a breakout session, discuss some of the insights of the panel a bit more closely, and give us a chance to meet and connect with each other on these topics. So I've given you sort of a sequence of events for today very briefly. It's also in your description for the day's events. So let's move on to meeting our actual panelists for now. Our panelists in alpha order include Ali Butt, who is a current Faculty of Medicine student and a member of the Community of Support program as well. Following Ali, we have Prilly Bicknell-Herskell, who's a former Transitional Year Program student, a current Faculty of Arts and Science student, and a very recent admit to a master's program in education at York. She was also accepted to OISE, but chose to stay at York. So no guilt there. Following Prilly is Tenzin Chotso, who is a former student of the CU of T program and a current student of the Faculty of Kinesiology. Hi, Tenzin. Following Tenzin, we have Kailina Smoke, who is a U of T Mississauga student and member of staff who works on initiatives for Indigenous students at the Center for Student Engagement as well. Last but not least, we have Sudan Stone, who is the site facilitator for the Imani Mentorship Program based out of U of T Scarborough, is also a U of T Scarborough student in the second year of study. So nice to see you all again after talking a bit this morning and our last meeting. For anyone who's interested in learning more about our panelists today, you can refer to the Access Connections Day event page where they have full bios, a bit more comprehensive than what I just offered, but nonetheless useful if you want to see more about who the folks are today. So if it's okay with all of you, skipping the pleasantries, we can move right into our first question of the day that I'm going to go and request in order and sequence. We'll start with Ali. So how have access programs supported your goals? This could be personal goals, academic goals, just goals in general. I'll start with you, Ali.
Yeah, so thank you, Shane, and thank you for having me here today. So I'll just introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Ali Butt, a first-year medical student at the University of Toronto. Prior to attending medical school, I did my undergrad in kinesiology. I worked in rehab. I also served with Canadian Armed Forces and started a non-for-profit organization to help seniors become more active in their respective communities. So the COAST program, which I'm an alumni of, or the Community of Support Access program, allowed me to connect with other medical students from similar backgrounds to act as mentors, and reassured me that I was not alone in my struggle to get to medical school. As both of my parents did not graduate high school, and I come from a low-income background, I didn't know a physician personally, and I wasn't close enough to anyone in the admissions process to know about how they could go to assist me, or even a physician I could emulate. So the Community of Access program provided me help with interview prep by connecting me to current medical students that came from similar backgrounds. It also allowed me to connect with physicians who had faced similar adversities and were now successful physicians, even with some in teaching positions. The program really allowed me to have a sense of belonging, so that I felt like I was surrounded by people who knew the barriers that I had to overcome to get to medical school. And it also allowed me a place to connect with other students where we could talk about the difficulties we were facing. I would not be here today without the Community of Access program. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful for the University of Toronto for funding these programs and allowing me to access them as well as others in the future.
Thanks for that, Ali. So let's move on to Prilly. So how have access to programs supported your goals, academic and personal?
Well, the academic programs or access programs at U of T have been absolutely life-changing for me. Some people know, some people don't, but I actually only finished grade 9 before I had my first child and dropped out of school. And then I came back, I did TYP, I did my undergrad, and as you said, I'm now accepted into a master's program. This is important to kind of highlight some of the same sentiments that Dr. Gala had, which is the standardized tests that we have in school, in elementary and in high school are not really indicative of our ability to succeed in post-secondary, and I'm an example of that. But to continue answering the question, it's been absolutely life-changing for me, and my 2 children that I have now, I've been able to afford them opportunities in a life that I may not have been able to had I not gone to school. And I have been, a research assistant, a peer mentorship coordinator, a lot of different roles that I've taken on during my studies at U of T. And one of the most amazing things that's important to me professionally and academically is seeing how the work that I've done has actually helped other students access post-secondary education. So the year before last, I actually was employed as the peer mentorship coordinator for CU of T, and one of my students was Tenzin, and now Tenzin's at U of T, and I just think that's a wonderful example of how important these access programs are.
Thanks for that, Prilly. So I think it makes sense to move on to Tenzin since you really know each other as well.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tenzin. As Prilly mentioned, I was a student in CFT, and that program, the access program CFT, has helped me because around grade 11, I knew I wanted to go in a kin, specifically the U of T's kin program. And that same time, our guidance counselor was telling us about the CUFT program, and I really was interested and intrigued by the opportunities they had. So through this program, I got to meet upper year students, amazing mentors, and at my placement at Innis Residence, and also at the first year class I attended, which is pop culture. Not to mention the access I had to the gym and all the clubs, which helped me build my SOI, the statement of interest I had to complete for my application. And I gained a lot of skills from time management, from balancing my work to school and the placement. And I feel that it shaped me to be a suitable student for the program and helped me gain this opportunity, like become suitable for the program. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Tenzin. So Kailina, so how have access programs supported your goals, personal, academic, otherwise?
Sego everyone, Sego Sewagwego, Gajinanta Yungwats. My name is Kailina Smoke, but my Mohawk name is Gajijinanta. I am a Indigenous woman, a Mohawk woman from Akwesasne, and I work as the Indigenous Initiatives Engagement Assistant with Center for Student Engagement. And this, being able to be in this role has really helped me because being an Indigenous student from a reserve who's like, I've lived my entire life, was a really big cultural shock to be moving to a city I didn't know anyone and didn't have any access to my family and my culture in some ways. So it was like being in this position gave me the opportunity to connect to the Indigenous community at UTM and in Toronto in general. And that's something that's very important to me. And I feel like for many Indigenous people, because having that sense of community and having those connections to other people who understand like all these barriers that you're going through and all these other like colonialistic institutions that you're in really helped. And it also gave me the opportunity to create programming where other Indigenous students didn't feel so like disconnected and so alone and be able to meet each other. And it's just like, just help me in like my professional goals too, because I want to work on like with Indigenous communities on certain projects that are like connect to like repatriation of culture. A really big goal of mine is to work on projects in which I'm able to bring Indigenous children home who never made it home from residential schools to their home communities. So it's been giving me the ability to learn more about how to connect with Indigenous communities that aren't mine, because I can't say that the Indigenous experience is all the same and that I understand automatically what all these different Indigenous communities understand. Even though I am an Indigenous person, I have to understand there's so much diversity and so many different issues that other Indigenous communities are facing. So it's helped me like tap into that and be more understanding. And yeah, that's how it's helped me in my personal and professional goals.
Thanks for your answer, Kailina. Okay, so Sudan, how have access programs supported your goals, personal, academic, or otherwise?
Oh, so hi everyone, thank you for having me. Also, I'm Sudeen Stone, an international student from Jamaica, studying at UTSC, and I'm doing a specialist co-op in psychology. And access programs for me, so the access program that I'm a part of is the Imani Academic Mentorship Program. And how I initially joined it was I was walking on campus one day and they had some recruiters who were like, oh, it's this program for Black students to support Black students in the community. And then I was just so like Black students, and I went initially to just make some friends because it's first year, first few months, and I didn't have much friends. So I went there, and the community was really, really like overwhelming. I felt like I was at home, because like moving from a different country, as Kailina was saying, it's really like strange to be in a new environment and not knowing everyone. So going there and I saw that community, it really helped me to feel at home. And that's how it has like really benefited me personally, in the sense that I feel like I have a space where I can share and I can, be myself, and I can also hear from others and learn from others. But what was also even better about that was seeing the results of the work that we do, seeing the mentees who are part of the program in high school and middle school, in university, seeing them on campus, or hearing that, oh, I got into this school or into that school, and you hear the joy in their voice, and I just feel really proud, and I just feel really accomplished as a team that we were able to do that. And that has really like contributed to one of my personal goals, which is just to help people overall. Like, it's not a big thing, it's just helping people and giving people access. I was fortunate enough to get to this prestigious university all the way from the Caribbean. And I want other people to have that feeling, to know that they got into that dream school and they got that dream scholarship. So that is how access programs has benefited me personally, in the sense that it has given me a sense of community, and it has also given me the avenue to reach out and impact, and to see the benefits of that for when other people also achieve from it. So that's how access programs have really benefited me.
Wow, so I've learned so much more about you just from your first initial answers. I appreciate all of your contributions thus far. So moving on to our next question, what does success look like for you on your learning journey? And how do you understand success on this learning journey? How do you define it, success? Anyone can jump in, there's no sequence of order that has to happen.
I guess I can just jump in. I think that oftentimes we measure success by some end goal. And I've realized throughout the years through studying at U of T that everything is a success, at least for me. I mean, going to TYP and completing it was a success. Doing my undergrad and completing it was a success. Of course, we always have goals and bigger things that we'd like to do, but I think it's really important for myself and for other students to enjoy the moment and realize that just studying at such a prestigious university is a big deal. And also, as a Black woman with Black kids that have now watched me go to post-secondary school is a success. That for me is very important. And I feel like I've already been successful.
I think I'm going to follow up on what Prilly said. I think success for me looks like doing better than I did before. And I say better than I did before because I feel like in like modern day society, we have so much access to what other people are doing. And it's so easy to quickly compare yourself to this person or hold yourself to someone else's standard. But being better than the person who you were yesterday is success for me. Getting 1% higher on something that you did before is success for me. Just constantly evolving within yourself and not necessarily having success being measured by external factors or what people said or what the standard is. And I feel like that's really important for us to really kind of keep in mind that, you know, you can't really measure yourself by other people. It's like everyone has different factors that contributed to their own path. And so you have to focus on the factors that contributed to your path and recognize the successes that came from your individual path, because after all, you're the only one living for yourself. So that's how I think I measure success for myself on a daily basis.
So success. Oh, sorry, Tenzin, go
Oh
ahead.
no. Oh, I was just gonna say I agree with both Philly and Celine, because jumping into the first year, not knowing that much, I noticed I can't stress over big, like, end goals, as Philly said, and I need to focus more on the small things, such as changing my study habits. Those are even successes, and I learned them from my environment as well, from the mentors and other friends. That was all.
Anyone else want to jump in on this question? So I guess
Sure. Sure. So for me, success looks like a good structured day. So I try not to live too much in the future. So if I get a workout in, if I get some breakfast, I'm able to connect with family and friends and study. That for me is success. I think anything on top of that, whether it be good grades or passing the test, is icing on the cake. And so for me, yeah, just getting through the day and being grateful and really practicing gratitude towards everything that I have been given in life is success for me.
so. Success as a non sort of comparative measure and success as a non-linear sort of process, right? If it's a good day, it's sort of a measure of success for you and something that you can take and move forward with. So thank you for your answers on that question. Another question for you. So which supports did you find most helpful in your access programs? And what supports would you have liked to have access to that you maybe didn't have access to when you were in your access program? So which supports were most helpful or most supportive or most valuable to you in your time?
The most major supports to me during my time was we got an extra tutor, time to meet with the registrar, placement, and the classes. So that those allowed me to meet people who are already in the school and see how it would be there and see if I really enjoy it there.
For me, a lot of the supports, and I answered this question a week ago when I was having a meeting about TYP, but a lot of the supports came from the staff at TYP. Shane, you were one of them, even though, I mean, you weren't you weren't hired to be like kind of like a therapist to a lot of the TYP students. But these things were really important to have staff who didn't see you as a number or just another student. You guys really cared about us and cared about whatever issues we were going through at the time that made it difficult to maybe study or hand in an assignment. So a lot of the supports that were in place for me that really helped were just the people that were there at the TYP house when you walked in, a lot of the professors. Yeah, that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, just to go off what Prilly was saying, I found that, and Tenzin, that connecting with students who are currently in the program that came from similar backgrounds was so vital for me. Because I remember throughout my undergrad and even after with my work that I did, I felt so alone and that like I wasn't represented in medicine. And so when I was able to connect with students who were from similar backgrounds, it kind of gave this sense of relief the sense that like, I could do this and that I do have the supports necessary. And much like Prilly was saying, like therapy, right? When connecting with those older students, because you realize you can do it and that there are people there that are rooting for you and supporting you. I think one thing that I wish had COVID not been a thing was to connect with students in person. I think that would have been nice just to be around an environment where like-minded people and people from similar stories are together and just even sharing a meal or talking about regular day life. I think that would help foster that sense of community.
For me, I think one of the most of the supports were helpful were definitely like the people again, like as they've been saying, like the pro staff at Center for Student Engagement have always been so supportive and helpful and like helping me achieve these goals that I had for creating different programs. And also like with UTM, there's been a rise in the hiring of Indigenous professors and student staff and faculty. And so having these Indigenous professors reach out to me and like me reaching out to them during the programs have always been so helpful because they always are so supportive and they want to participate and help me as much as I can. But it's also to recognize that like they're professors and their faculty and staff, and this is exactly what their role should be. Like there should be other support systems that should be in place. Like just in the past few years, there's been a update in the Indigenous Center at UTM, where there's been a new hire. Her name is T. Duke, and she's the assistant director. And it's been amazing having her in the position, but there needs to be space in that area too, because there needs to be things for like academic support and financial support that are specifically aimed at Indigenous students, because there's things that are like, we're in institutions where Indigenous knowledge can't really exist because Western knowledge really takes it over, and there's stuff like that that needs to be seen in terms of support. And like for Indigenous students, much of like our financial support isn't like, we don't apply for OSAP, we don't do other loans or grants, we use band funding. And that was one thing I really noticed in my first year, is that the office of the registrar didn't understand what band funding was, and I had to go like to off campus to First Nations House to reach out for help. But I shouldn't have to do that. Like my campus should be able to understand and help me. So that's some of the supports I liked and what I really wish that I seen more of.
Thanks for all those answers. So it sounds like having access to supports that are people-driven, having a space that's people-driven, you can have access to, increase access to, and a comprehensive list of supports, both academic, financial, really important for seeing students through their time at U of T across various programs. So I have a follow-up question to that question. So how did you learn about the Access program that you were part of? This is to do with recruitment. How did you learn about the program? And also what sort of motivated you to become involved in the program as well?
Well, I think I kind of hinted to this in my first response, but I was literally walking on campus and I saw the students in their Department of Student Life shirt. And I don't remember why, but I think I was in a rush and I was really trying to avoid eye contact with the person who was trying to come to me. But like we made eye contact for like half a second and I just couldn't walk away. So I listened to what he had to say and I was really glad I stopped. And when I went to the meeting, I think it was like the next week, as I said, seeing so many familiar faces, seeing people who look like me, seeing people who have the same stories as me, just kind of come together. And then for such an incredible cause, you know, getting students in secondary school and in middle schools to come to university. And what kind of motivated me to stay was because I realized how important that work was. I didn't know that like for like a point of view for others who are from Canada only or have never been to like a Caribbean country, like they sell Canada as like the most incredible place in the world. And while it really does have some nice perks to it, like I was really surprised that we even had to have a program to get Black students into university because there's streaming and systemic racism in the system. So it was really, I really realized that I didn't know that that would be something that would have to be done. When I realized that that's a need, I was like, okay, this is something that I really have to get involved with because I'm very passionate about access because of how much access I have gotten in the past. And so I feel like I needed to stay and to help to ensure that this work continues because, you know, there are students who need to come to university And it really feels kind of isolating when I look in like my faculty, especially for the faculty of psychology. I have yet to find a Black professor on campus in the psychology department. And so, it's like a pipeline that stems from just not having enough students in university in the first place. And so all of these factors, kind of came together. I'm like, yeah, this is something that I need to be involved with, and something that needs to be continued. And that's why I definitely stayed with it.
Thanks, Eva. Anyone else want to jump in on this question? How did you learn about the Access program you were part of, and what was that process like in meeting the folks involved?
Sure, I can go next. I actually learned about it from my job was posted for the first time. My being an Indigenous engagement assistant, I'm the first one to have this position. So I saw this position in my second year posted, and I applied for it because on the recommendation of a friend, because I was looking for a work study position because students we gotta pay bills. So I needed something like that, and also it's just like really spoke to me because it's like was for specifically like looking for Indigenous student and like wanted to help with programming and create programs that like weren't seen at UTM before. And that was something I really felt motivated to do. It was like something I could leave as a legacy at UTM, and just like also help with like, in my first year, I was very lonely. I was very disconnected from my family, very disconnected from my culture because I was so far away. And I wanted to make sure no other Indigenous student felt like that if they came to UTM. So making this program and making this position into what it is today was one of those things that motivated me to make sure that other Indigenous students have this access and feel more at home at UTM.
Thanks, Kailina. Anyone else want to jump on this question about how they learned about the program? It could be a narrative or just a short story about what that process was like, learning about the program that you were part of.
I could go, or okay. My guidance counselor was going around the school sharing it to each of the classes, the senior classes. And since I'd already been interested in U of T, I thought it'd be beneficial to see university life firsthand before investing 4 years into it. And it's not just if you want to go to U of T, it could be applied to how it'd be at other schools as well. And that's all.
Tenzin.
Yeah, for me, it was really, I was looking for something. I knew that Toronto was the diversity hub of essentially Canada. And I knew that being a student at McMaster, there weren't any programs there at the time. So that's why I was specifically attracted to U of T, because I wanted to be around people from the BIPOC community. And so while doing that and really just searching the internet, I came across the community support program and was able to connect via Facebook group. And then the rest was kind of history. So it was just sheer luck, I guess. And I'm happy that I found it.
So I found out about the transitional year program through a newspaper ad. Funny enough, I was like, I think my son was probably 2 at the time. And I think, I don't know, my daughter was maybe 8. And I just went on the bus and I was with, my son, and I picked up a Metro newspaper and saw an ad. And I was like, ooh, University of Toronto? Oh, they want Black people to come? Yeah, 100%. Full support parent? Yeah, that's me. And then I did a little bit more research on the program, and I saw at the time that there was like a Black female registrar, and this is all to say that representation matters. When I saw that and when I read about the program, and when the program's mandate was specifically geared to recruit people like me, I was 100% all in. And yeah, it was absolutely life-changing seeing that ad in the newspaper that day. It was meant to be.
Thanks so much for all your answers. So representation is a big part of this process, obviously, and having your passions align with your political interests is also a big part for those who've chosen to be staff in these programs as well. So thanks for those answers. This kind of concludes our formal part of the questions I had prepared for you today, but we're going to move to our very, very, very busy chat to the right and sort of look to some of the questions that the folks in the room have as well. So, with my screen. First question I have is from the chat as well. Given the systemic barriers that continue to exist, what advice do you have for young people entering post-secondary? Great question.
I think I'll take this one up. Something that I will definitely recommend is knowing yourself before you get here. And this is just like in general, like before you get to university, find out who you are. And to be fair, you're going to evolve a lot in university, but having a baseline of like, you know, things that you value, things that some of your goals, because when you get here, you're going to be bombarded by a lot of personalities, a lot of different people pushing their own agendas. And if you're not like sturdy in yourself, you're going to start to doubt yourself, you're going to start to sway. And so having a solid foundation in who you are is the first step to ensuring that you kind of persevere and persist through, because you know what you came for, you know what the goal is, you know what the end goal is. And so no matter what comes to kind of sway you from that, you always get back to that. And as I said, there's definitely going to be times when you have to evolve and change, but there should always be like from like a certain point. It shouldn't be like going all over the place because you don't know what to do or because someone said this about you, internalize it, and then you're in like a crisis. So that would be the first thing. And the second thing would be understanding that you have support and rely on the support that you have, find a community and rely on them. It's really, really important to have a community. It can make like your experience so much better. And I definitely felt the difference from before I was in the program to after I was in the program. I felt way more supported, and that can really help you to navigate the hard times and navigate it easier because you hear someone who had this experience and then you're like, okay, so that's how you do this, or that's what this is like. And so finding that community can also be a big thing to help you through. And I think that would be like the two biggest pieces of advice that I could give to students who are going to enter post-secondary.
Yeah, those are big insights. Know yourself, know the supports, and find community. Thanks for that, Savannah.
To answer that question, I would say don't be discouraged. There were a lot of times, not within the Access program, but being in the wider university, during my first year, it was horrible. I felt so discouraged. I was getting C's and I was comparing myself to all the other students, and the stories that you hear about being like academically rigorous and getting A's, and you know, you won't go far if you're getting C's. And I was so discouraged. After my first year, I got my first A and never got a grade less than an A since my second year. And I kind of had like imposter syndrome. I felt like, oh my God, like I got an A. I can do okay here. I can be successful here. And it's just important to know that you've worked hard to get where you are, regardless if you entered through a non-traditional way of getting into university. You've earned your place, you've earned your grades, and you have a place in this university. And so don't be discouraged.
Thanks for that, Prilly. Okay, we're gonna move to a few other questions. I have about 5 here. I have a question specifically for Prilly and Tenzin, who are part of the cohort of access-based programs. What is it like transitioning from the cohort to a degree program? What were some of the shifts, changes, and supports that you would have needed at the time or had missed at the time? So what does the process of transitioning from a TRP student to an FAS student look like for you?
I can go, or Tenzin, do you want to go?
Either one.
Okay.
You can go.
I apologize in advance. I do have to leave in a few minutes. So I guess this kind of builds on my last comment about transitioning into the wider university. It's definitely different. It was difficult during my first year, but you get used to it. You understand how things work, I guess, logistically in the university, as well as the barriers and the systemic barriers that you may face being a racialized or Indigenous student in the university. It is very different. I don't think a lot of the staff understand the unique understandings of access students and our needs. There was one time in particular that I had asked, one of my professors if I can just have like pick a different day for an exam or something like that, because I had an important appointment with my son. It was with a specialist and it had taken 6 months to even get in. And so I knew I couldn't do the exam that day. And these are like the really nuanced things that happen to students who have jobs or kids or other responsibilities that the university or some professors, not all, but some professors don't take into account, and they don't care. And she told me, I don't care, you either do it or you're getting a 0. And I said, okay, and I dropped the course. And that was the one and only course that I dropped, but I wasn't willing to compromise things that were important in my life in order to study. And so I think that professors and staff members do need to take into account the different needs of access students.
Sure, go ahead, Tenzin. Sorry.
I think for me, especially during this year with the pandemic and everything being online, I didn't have as much support for understanding how first year would work, but being a part of the program last year or the year before, I was already a part of the class, so I knew how the system worked, like Quarkus and everything. And it made the transition a little bit more smooth, and I had people to turn to, like my mentors and peers that I had from before, and that was all.
Okay, I felt like rapid fire. So we've gone through sort of the amount of time we have allotted for today, but I want to thank you all so very much for your time, your contributions, and your insights. It's clear that as Access Program students and staff, there are some key considerations to take away. One sort of being the process of relationship building with staff who recruit students for these programs. Two, the notion of community building and sort of finding supports within other people in those programs as well. And just finding a space where you can align your interests with your passions and your goals, right? I think you all have done that both academically and professionally as well in all that you do. And I really appreciate all of the things that you share with us as staff to help us inform our best practices to become better. So really appreciate it. In terms of where we're moving next, we are going to head into our breakout sessions after this, where we're going to have some of the panelists stay on, contribute to some of these conversations, and have facilitators also join the conversation so we can discuss more closely some of what we learned this morning, what we want to sort of bring to the table further. So thank you very much for your time, appreciate it, and I learned a lot. So I hope to see you all soon beyond this. I'm going to pass it off, I think, back to Kimberly, who can move us into the next stage of our breakout rooms.
So hi, everyone. If you just bear with us, Heart House Events will have us populated into various breakout rooms. It will be done automatically. So you should be able to just join your breakout room.